And when we talk about the lost city of Atlantis, it sunk down into the sea. And where are a lot of these UFOs coming from? They're coming in and out of the sea. So that maybe they've been here for thousands and thousands of years. My guest with me today is Colonel Kenny, and Colonel Kenny Ken Dupar. You are a 30-year Army veteran, and you are a retired construction worker. Now you're an author, and your latest book is called "Pinup Dolls and Classic Cars: A COVID Love Story." I wanted to kind of just start with the book, and you've actually got two books. This is your second book. I wanted to kind of get into the books real quick, and then we'll move on from there and see where the conversation takes us. But Kenny, tell me about like what was your inspiration for writing Pinup Dolls and Classic Cars, a COVID love story? Why a love story, and why a COVID love story?
Uh, it wasn't my intention, Ricky, at all. What I knew was is that it took me 50 years to write my first novel, and I couldn't be one and done because I was working on my craft, whatever that is. I have no idea. Writing is just bizarre, but I knew I had to keep going, and I was going to car shows, and I saw pinups at the car shows. And I was thinking of pinups like the nose art of that they would put World War II the veterans would put on their airplanes and such, and pinup models and pinup calendars and all this. I'm like, that's a thing, and it's a thing. And all of a sudden, I'm thinking there, and I'm looking at this. I'm like, so you got gearheads and you got pinup dolls. Boom, instant cast of characters. What are these people doing, right? And so I'm writing about what these people are doing, pure Americana, and uh, COVID hit. And I'm like, oh, okay, this put a really big, I was writing the book during COVID, and it, boy, did things change, you know? And
Yeah.
it, how could, for 100 years, a man could ask a girl to a date, dinner, and a movie. Now I was living in Seattle land, and they loved shutting things down in the Pacific Northwest. I mean, it was the politicians loved that. Um, it was like Christmas for them. But uh, yeah, it really was a shocker as
Yeah.
far as and I was dating at the time, or trying to, and it was bizarre. What do you want to do? Let's go hang out at the park. Oh,
Right,
okay.
right. Yeah, I remember when um we first got locked down here in Missouri, it was like a reflex, right? And I was already a stay-at-home dad, so I was used to being at home all the time anyway. But when everything locked down, it took away my ability to escape my house. And my kids wouldn't, they were, it's not that they were bad or anything, they were just cooped up, so they didn't really like, we have a park right across the street from our house, but they couldn't hang out there. Lord, no, they wouldn't do that. But it was a crazy time. And you were in the middle of writing a book. I think that would probably, something like that happening, did it really help you to focus more on the book, or did you focus more on wanting to be outside and do things with people?
I never really wanted to go outside and be with other people.
Yeah,
To be
yeah.
honest, uh,
Basically what I want, did the shutdowns and the lockdowns and all the things happening, did that help you to focus more on the book?
it gave me an opportunity to put a big crooked turn in the plot because
Yeah.
the characters are going in a particular direction, And one of the blurbs I have on the back of the book would say, "How will a young romance survive when all of a sudden you have travel restrictions, you have people worried about getting sick. There's reports on the news of people dying,
Yeah.
and there's the big fear factor, and so it changed a lot very quickly. And seeing how people, fictional characters reacted to it, a lot of people lost their jobs,
Yeah.
and the characters lost their jobs. You couldn't get a haircut. One of the characters I said was a beautician, and so you're not talking about you know rich people.
Right.
You're uh, some guys were traveling construction guys, and uh, so seeing how it affected people, and then of course the tragic part of it is that people were dying as a cause of it.
Yeah.
Although the number of people that were dying of, say, cardiovascular disease pretty much disappeared. And what I mean by that is that my father died during this period, and he had a lot of things that were wrong with him.
Right.
But they found after his death that he had COVID, and so the cause of death was COVID.
Right.
You see the distinction? In other
Yeah.
words, Medicare could get more money. If hospitals get more money if a patient died of COVID, whether or not you just if you had it and you were in a motorcycle wreck, it wasn't the motorcycle wreck that killed you. You had COVID, therefore you died of COVID. So,
Right. And if you and I did something like that, it'd be considered fraud, would it not?
oh,
So essentially what they did, man, is they had financial incentives to label things COVID, whether they were or they weren't. And it was, unintentional by the federal government. I don't think the federal government intended it to be that way. I think what they intended was it was a reflex response to, hey, how do we take care of this issue? How do we fund these hospitals with these problems? And I think it started out with that, and then just over time, it very quickly actually turned into one of those things where the administrators and billing departments would get together, and they like, if this person had COVID at all, that's what they died of.
I, I'll bet you $20, Ricky, that if there were statistics generated as far as during those years, like say 2020, how many people died of COVID? Okay, X amount. How many people died of heart disease or liver cancer?
Right.
I bet there was a dramatic decrease in the number of people who died of, you know, uh, diseases, if you would, say in 2018. A lot of things got blamed on it. So I think that the the casualty rate, if you would, was skewed. Just one of a number of phony baloney bullshit that came out of this, you know,
Yeah.
6 feet away. It's like, oh, a sneeze can travel 100 miles an hour in 6 feet. And then the next thing you know, the people are putting tape on the floors, and you have like these distances. It was completely made up, and no one
Right.
even knows who made it up.
Right. And
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 next thing you know, it's law.
yeah, and our correspondence together before we sat down to do the podcast together, and our correspondence together, you had mentioned, like, so the United States isn't over, COVID and everything that it caused, and the side effects of it, basically that everything's not over, that we haven't even hit the rough patch yet. And I agree with that. I see that all the time. Actually, when I go to the gas station near my house, one of the gas stations near my house is always packed full of people because people get, cheap cigarette deals at this particular gas station. And when I go in there, it's usually packed full of people, but we're all 6 feet apart. We don't, we're not near each other in the middle of the grocery store. Still, there's no tape on the floor. There's no none of that stuff. It's pretty wild.
Like it was an airborne illness,
Yeah.
so everyone was going to get it. And they had a term called flattening the curve, where they were trying to reduce the transmission rate.
Yeah.
But it had nothing to do with whether or not everyone was going to be exposed to it. It's like there was a Russian flu of 1893 or something like that, killed millions of people, and it came from Russia, so they we call it the Russian flu, and it was airborne. Now we call it the common cold. Why? Because we now have natural immunity because it wiped out a bunch of people, and so I was working construction, and I remember trying to go to Home Depot and buying dust masks. And it was all cleaned out. And okay, this is a really stupid story, but just so that you understand the kind of person that I am, Ricky. Okay, so our construction, I was working for a general contractor, and they said, okay, you have to wear a a, a
In
covering around
90,
your mouth.
yeah, in 95.
No, I mean like in 2020,
Okay. Yeah.
2021. So you have to wear a dust mask, but you couldn't get dust masks because they're all out at the Home Depot. People were just buying them, and they're dust masks. Okay, what was that? The M95, is that
Yeah. In 95. Yeah.
N95? Well, of course, we don't have any of that kind of stuff. They said, well, just wear a bandana across your face. This is pointless. This is like trying to stop a mosquito from going through a chain link fence. Okay, it ain't doing a damn thing. So I went to the local grocery store, and I bought a bunch of women's panties. Okay, and I cut them up a little bit, and I was panty man. I'm like, if you guys want to do stupid, I will show you stupid. Okay, this is pointless, but so I'm wearing my little panty mask, and I did that for weeks,
I
until
love
finally
it.
they were able to get enough dust masks. It was my own little protest, but that gives you a very good insight as to the kind of person I am.
Yeah, yeah, that's hilarious though. I would have, if I would have thought about it, I would have done probably something similar. We went to, so traveling was actually kind of pleasant during COVID for me. So
Yeah.
we love to travel, and so during 20, so I think it was 2021, I had weight loss surgery. I'm wanting to say it was 2021. It was when were all the lockdowns? Was that 2020 or 2021?
Ooh, the
See, this
um
was only 5 years ago, and I can't remember.
well, COVID was found to be a thing in by about March of 2020.
Okay, yeah. So it was 2020. 2020. I had weight loss surgery. So right after that, I changed my life and started being more active and doing more things. And now that I could fit, I didn't want to say no to anything. So I traveled a lot during COVID. I went down to Tennessee to visit my sister, and we drove up to Maine to deliver a dog, essentially. But we had a lot of fun on the way back. We stopped and did some things. But I also went to San Francisco in the summer of 2022, and it was,
On purpose?
yes, on purpose. So my son's sister, so my ex-wife's daughter was getting married, and she wanted my son to be there. And my options were I could just fly him out there by himself. He could hang out with his mom, his family, and they could have fun. But I had mentioned, I was like, I've never been to San Francisco. That might be kind of cool. And
It's a
he's like,
beautiful city.
so after I said that, my son was like, I don't really. I want you to go. I want to go with you. I don't want to go hang out with them. I want to go explore the city with you. And that sounds more fun. We said we can go to the wedding, but all weekend we could just hang out. So him and I, we rented a convertible Mustang and hung out in the city of San Francisco for 3 days. and it was one of the most amazing times of my life. And I think it would have been completely different had it not been during COVID, because there was no people around.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I've worked in San Francisco remodeling hotels and whatnot, and it's a terrific city. I don't know if I'd want to go back there touristy. It's got some issues.
Right.
I mean, I'm a grown man. I got my head on the swivel. I'll be okay. But yeah, it has some definite challenges. Uh,
Yeah, I
work.
actually know some people that have been robbed out there. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, I just moved from Seattle land to Tennessee. Thank God. Thank God. And
yeah, you're out there in God's country. You're in Knoxville, right?
oh yeah,
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
beautiful, beautiful area there.
Uh, Traveling for myself as a carpenter, even in Seattle land, people were staying home. Oh, the commutes were nothing. The
Yeah,
traffic in Seattle is not fun. And so for us, when you're a tradesman, there's no such thing as working from home. Okay,
right,
it's have hammer, we'll travel. So for us, hey, it was great. We could, you know, the commute times dropped in half.
right.
But I can't think of anything else positive that came out of COVID other than that.
So there's a few positives that came out of it for us, but overall for the country, I think there's a split on how people dealt with it. And how we're moving forward. So people like me are preparing for um I'm more independent now than I was during COVID. And what I mean by that is I am prepared to not have to go to the store for 2, 3 weeks at a time. I've
Mhm.
stocked up on emergency supplies. Um, my equipment, actually, some of my equipment comes from China. I try to avoid Chinese products at all costs, but sometimes it can't be avoided. Some companies strictly only make their shit in China, but I buy extra pieces of equipment so I have them on hand, so I don't have to wait for them now. But being before, I was able to just go to the store and pick one up if it broke or something like that, and that's it's not possible anymore. Places like Walmart aren't dependable. Places like Best Buy aren't dependable to keep things in stock when you need them. And so you end up having to go to places like Amazon and you wait 2, 3 days, sometimes 2, 3 weeks. Well, if those supply lines get cut off, we're not gonna have access to anything. And life's gonna stop just like it did in 2021, 2022 when the supply chain got cut off.
Toilet paper. People went crazy about toilet paper.
Yeah, that's and it's they did go crazy over toilet paper. That's it. They hoarded toilet paper and there was no need. They created a shortage essentially, and then manufacturers went to go keep up with the shortage, and they overproduced toilet paper, and it just sat on shelves for months after everybody went nuts. The same thing happens like so. If there's a like let's just say there's a big thing in the news. I can't believe it didn't happen when we did the strike on Iran. Every time something like that happens, you'll see lines at gas stations and people with buckets filling. Like I've seen people with trash bags filling trash bags up, and this was prior to COVID. But when something like that happened, people they do go nuts. And it's a mob mentality. Everybody's out for themselves. It's the wildest thing you'd ever seen. And that's why people like me are kind of preparing a little bit different.
I think you're right. Where there's maybe two different mindsets. There's people who still believe in what the government is going to tell them. And then there are those of us who are like, no, that's
Yeah, ain't
not
nobody
right.
coming to help us. Nobody's coming to save
That's
us.
that's a bunch of baloney. Yeah. And there's just so many examples, but it was like the most stringent example. Well, like there are characters in the book well, there's one particular character wants to throw a party, right?
Yeah.
Well, these were, what do they call that? When you have mass gatherings where they were trying to keep them, you're shutting down the
Well,
churches,
these days we call them protests.
protests. Um, but there were people who thought all of a sudden it's like, we're living in East Germany. I got to turn these people in. Hey, that person's in the park. That stay at home dad is in the park with his kids and they don't have masks on. I'm calling the cops. And the cops would show up and say, you got to leave the park. I mean, they were closing down golf courses. It's like, I got to wear a mask to play golf. Okay, so you people are insane, and I'm going to wear women's underwear on my face. And you'll ask me why. It's because I'm leading the crazy. And that was
Yes.
that was my ridiculous response. But um, people can turn into informants very quickly
It,
because they are virtue signaling
I
and they are
love that you're bringing
complying.
this up, brother. I love that you're bringing this up
And
because it's happening still with the current administration. They want you to snitch out, you know, migrants, the illegal immigrants. That's still happening. It doesn't matter which administration it is. They all want to steer towards authoritarianism, and it's scary as hell.
sure, I mean, the living in a democratic republic is the exception in world history as far as how people have lived. Mostly we've lived under tyrants for the most part. We have a republic, like Benjamin Franklin said, if you can keep it, you know?
Yeah.
So, uh, and so I hope that um, even just bringing up silly things like you would drive to the convenience store, you'd get all the way to the door, and you would forget that you had forgotten your mask.
Yeah.
So you'd have to go back to your car and grab a mask. Or if I just saw one on the sidewalk, I just pick it up and put it on. And just actually, I didn't do that. But God, was it a pain in the ass?
Yeah.
Everything was a pain in the ass.
Yes.
You know, you go to church and people would sing with their dust masks on. It's like, well, we must sound really bad. That the choir sounds like shit.
Yes, yes. I'm telling you, it was so frustrating for me during those times because I couldn't leave the house, you know, like 2019, I everything was fine, and then 2020, everything would just totally went to shit, and it happened really quick. The kids were in school and then they were home doing homeschool, and it was very rough because I was a stay at home dad. I couldn't leave the house to go to work. The restaurants and everything was closed, so I couldn't really do anything. So I was shut in my house for like a year. And when we went to go grocery shopping, the local grocery stores wouldn't let more than one person in at a time. And it was,
Really?
yeah, yeah. So to get out of the house, all of us would just gather up and go to the grocery store. And me and the kids would sit out in the parking lot and wait for my wife to get done at the grocery store. That it was a huge pain in the ass to do anything. And so yeah, we kind of learned from that and we're like, well, we're not going to be caught with our pants down any longer. And like so we haven't bought bread since like January. We make our own bread at home now. We make our own pizza, like our pizza dough. Um, we're my wife wants to make her own pasta now. So as long as we have access to like ingredients, we can do whatever we need to do. And we live here in the Midwest, so a farm is just 10 miles any direction you can go
Yeah.
find a farm in 10 miles or so. So it we wanted to depend less upon our government because we know that look, if something bad happens, nobody's coming to save us.
No, no one's coming.
That's
Right.
right.
Um, the you were homeschooling already. Is that right?
Yeah. No, we weren't homeschooling already, but like we were the school shut down and we had to
Right.
do everything online. And that created other issues. Like our children have never, they're not going to recover from that. They lost 2 years of education through that time.
There you go. And that is something that um, chaps my ass more than anything else was how when they started shutting the schools down, I thought to myself, if I could have asked the representatives of those school districts, what are you going to do about the special ed kids?
Right.
Do you really expect that the special ed kids are going to sit in front of a computer screen for 7 hours? And I mean, and it was just like the special ed kids got thrown under the bus. No
Yeah.
one talked about it at all. And the social development, my fiance's daughter graduated high school 2 years ago, and yeah, it was like her junior year was a joke,
Yeah.
and and that and the United States was the only country in the world that shut down their schools.
Yeah.
The only one. It was absolutely a self-inflicted mortal wound. And
It
I tell you
ultimately
what,
was
brother,
political. It was a political decision.
I moved to Tennessee because I asked myself this question: what are we going to hoard next time? Okay, because there's going to be another time. Okay, and I'm not a prepper, but I should be. Uh,
Yeah.
but the thing is that
I think everybody should be, man, to be honest with you. Like, I don't think preppers are crazy now. I really don't. Like before COVID, I used to think that the people running around gathering guns and resources were a little nutty. But now I look at it totally different. Like I'm not hoarding guns and ammo or anything, but if I just happen to see, a good deal, I'm going to pick it up because, like, you never know, you know? And, like, it's not that I'm not hoarding particularly anything, but I want to be prepared in case I can't get things. I want to be able to take care of my family in case everything goes to shit. I've bought books like on how to build wood gaserators, you know, like so you can burn wood and create power generation. I've bought books on how to do those things so I can be more prepared in case things happen, because like right now I believe we're in the middle of World War III, to tell you honestly.
just it's getting started.
Yeah, I so if you look at the what happened prior to World War I and World War II, like we're right in that stage where it's like we're one Franz Ferdinand moment away from it starting, and like it could be, there could be several flashpoints that start it. Like it could start in Ukraine, it could start in Taiwan, it could start in uh, Iran, Israel. It could start in Syria. Like we just saw Israel strike Syria. Like I'm not positive on where it would start, but I think we're kind of in the middle of. I think it's either going to happen. I think it's inevitable. I think China's attacking us every day digitally. Russia's been attacking us every day digitally for the last several years. Nobody's calling them out for doing it. I just struggle to deal with that internally and be like, okay, we're not at war, but all these things are happening and nobody's saying anything about it. I think a lot of people that are very important actually probably know things are a lot worse off than what they say.
Certainly, I think that the conflict between Israel and practically all of its neighbors is just it's just ongoing. It's like when they
Yeah.
talked about the most recent war with when Israel started striking Iran, and then President Trump authorized the use of the bunker buster. Well, they said that was Israel and Iran were at war. When did it stop? When did it
Yeah.
start? It's just ongoing.
Yeah.
So you have like low intensity conflicts that are just smoldering, and you don't know what that, like you said, a flashpoint is going to be. But I know that we're going to need a lot of toilet paper. And I'm not going to be able to get a haircut, and I better get a Generac and about 5 months supply of chow and something like that for the,
Yeah.
I'm going to, just to put my mind at ease, Ricky, I'm just going to call it the zombie apocalypse,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
so that I can just, it's more palatable. And that's really what I do with um, I inject humor into my work, into my novels, because that's who I am. And it makes the icky things seem a little bit more palatable. And of course,
Palatable.
human
Yeah.
beings do a lot of stupid things. It's like, okay, people running people running with a mask on. You've ever seen that?
Yep.
Do you ever see people drive their cars by themselves with a mask on?
Yes.
Um, and then I would see parents trying to put masks onto a toddler, or
Yeah. That
the
was
parent has a
heartbreaking.
mask on. It's like, don't you realize that this little child is learning to speak by watching your mouth?
Yes.
Okay. And we're running around like a bunch of bank robbers, right? Because, they can't, no one's going to, and it's like, your child is going to be, how is a child supposed to learn how to speak if he
Yeah.
can't see your mouth,
Yeah.
right?
Luckily, we
And
had here around here, we had a lot of child development help for us in particular. That told us, like, don't put a mask on him, and you need to make sure that, because our youngest is 6, so he was born in 2019. And they told us, like, don't put a mask on him. He needs to make sure you need to make sure he sees your mouth a lot. He needs to see you talking, and he learned a lot from actual, like, television and screens, which we hated. But, like, I'm a total tablet dad.
what does that mean?
So my kids have tablets and electronic screens all the time, and, like, we try to limit their screen time, but it's helpless sometimes. But they call parents that allow their children to have electronic devices, like, they call us tablet parents, and they say that we're allowing the tablet to raise the child and stuff like that. But it's for our case, our 6-year-old has autism, and he uses his tablet all the time for different multitude of different things, and it helps him learn. So we're not with that one, we're not too concerned. But our older children didn't have access to a whole lot of electronics before. Like, my oldest is 22, so they didn't have all the things that available to them as they do now. So, but yeah, I'm a total tablet dad.
Yeah. So I don't try to think about it too often, but as far as takeaways from the experience, it's so recent.
Yeah.
Um, how easily people swallow false information. We started getting new words like misinformation and disinformation, and it was used interchangeably, I think, just to confuse people.
Yeah.
And in the state of Washington, we had a governor out there that kept on talking about, we have to follow the science. The science is our God, and we must do everything that science,
To
you
argue
know.
with Fauci is to argue with science.
Oh, that guy. Yeah, and the Wuhan lab, and how US taxpayers were funding it, and all this stuff that's just going to come out in dribs and drabs, and things like that. But the media and how they shape things, and but boy, I mean, there's a lot of anger out there because um, I was working for as a general contractor I was working for a general contractor as a as a foreman, and you couldn't go into the Google campus unless you had the jab. You
Yeah.
couldn't work at Microsoft or Facebook. I mean, this is Seattle land, right?
Yeah.
And so when they finally got around to allowing old fat white guys to get the jab, because we were not,
We weren't
we
anybody's
weren't the priority,
priority. Yeah. I've never been
right?
anybody's favorite. I'm used to it.
My fiance at the time, she's like, "We're gonna go get the J&J. We got to go to the school, like a drive-through. At least I got the J&J because I didn't get the other two.
I got two Pfizers.
Yeah.
I actually got three. I got two Pfizers and a booster. Yeah, I might not I might be done for.
Well, for me, it was like I want to get COVID. You had some people that were deadly afraid of it. I'm like, bring it on. I
Yeah.
don't care. I think in January of 2020, when it first arrived, I had a sore throat for about a week and a half, which is
Yeah.
very unusual for me. I
Yeah.
never get sick. I never get
Same
sick,
thing
but I'm just
happened
like,
here. Same thing happened here. We ended up getting sick the winter of 2019 2020. So it was like February-ish. We all got sick. But I did end up getting COVID I think 2022, 2023, something like that. It hit me like a freight train, man. And
mm,
it came on fast and it was over just as quick. Like I think it was 24, 48 hours I was really feeling it, and then it it went away just as quick as it came. And then um this year, no, last year I got the flu, um influenza A, and that was the worst I'd ever felt my entire life with influenza A. And I was telling
mm.
my wife, I was like, man, COVID was nothing compared to this. This is awful. And I just remember thinking like they tried to like they tried to tell us that young people, we're all going to die if we get COVID, you know? And it turns out that it was just for most people, it was meh. It was like a cold.
Right. And so the death rates were actually very much lower
Yeah.
in terms of causation is concerned. Um, was Missouri uh, draconian like we were on the West Coast?
No, so
Did
it
you go
was
into restaurants and bars and stuff?
kinda kinda it was more like a hybrid system here. Like a lot of people cheated too to get around the rules, and some of the rules were intentionally vague so they can go around them. So like our local cigarette stores that only sold tobacco products, they went and got uh big giant, like, so they went and got some toilet paper and then wrote, $50 a roll on that toilet paper. So that, they knew nobody was going to pay $50 a roll for their toilet paper. But if they had toilet paper, they could be open. So
Right.
we had a lot of that stuff going on. Our grocery stores locally here in St. Joseph, Missouri, locally our grocery stores kicked ass, brother. What they did was, you know how everybody has their supply chain. They have contracts, they have, distributors and suppliers, they have their people that they deal with. And our local stores, our local grocery stores went outside of their supply chains to get whatever they needed to get at the price that they needed to get it, just so we could have stuff. And so our grocery stores never really ran out of shit. The only thing that we had trouble getting really was toilet paper, pretty much. Our local restaurants, it decimated our local restaurants. Like a lot of
Oh
them
yeah.
closed
Oh God, yeah.
because they couldn't, like, so what we did, like, we qualified for that stimulus check. And what we did, we took that entire stimulus check and we used it going out to eat and buying local stuff from restaurants and stuff. Our local pizzeria, we spent like $70 a week in there. And it was like they
Good.
they wanted us to patronize these places, but they wanted to do it. They wanted us to do takeout, and a lot of people weren't doing that. It was just they would let these places close, and it was very sad. But things like that happened here. But as far as shutting things down, like strictly, like they didn't do that. Like our McDonald's and everything was still open. Walmarts and
Yeah.
everything were still open.
The,
They weren't 24 hours. They're not 24 hours still, but
the
everything was
bigger
pretty
you
much
are,
still open. Yeah.
the bigger you are, the better chance you would have of not getting shut down.
Yeah.
When they started closing things, I'm like, if they close the liquor stores and the pot shops, we're burning this son of a bitch down. Okay.
Yes.
There
Yes.
ain't
And
no way in hell that they're going to close the liquor stores and the pot shops because I myself, I'm going to riot. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm lighting something on fire because I need some beer. You know what I'm saying?
right.
And
Right.
there was
And
no way that
they
but
labeled those essential.
but the Christians, oh, the Christians are so peaceful. They'll do whatever you tell them to do. You know. Yeah, well, they were trying to limit the exposure rates, which of course was a fiction
Yeah.
from beginning to end. So
I
it
remember
was,
simultaneously they weren't allowing people go to church, but they were allowing protests. I do remember that. That was what 2020. Yeah.
oh yeah, that was Seattle in a nutshell. You know.
Yeah.
Um, so uh, the so yes, it's an inflection point, and it happened while I was writing the book, and boy, it was a really good hook because now what I was able to do in coming up to the end, and I've written two novels, and by the time you get towards the end, you're so exhausted, just like I don't care what happens, I'll kill every character if I have to, but this baby has to get born.
Right.
And so the question became in the novel, will COVID keep two young lovers apart? And uh, because it was serious, one of the characters has a compromised immune system. She had not too much of a spoiler, but she had lupus,
Yeah.
and so wow, that would really, that could, we didn't know,
Right.
it's like, oh, we're gonna believe you, and don't you close those liquor stores. Oh, we'll burn this place down.
So I want to shift gears a little bit. I noticed you got a map of Iraq behind you,
Yeah.
and so one of the things during COVID that had changed my life. But in 2017, there was a New York Times article that basically said UFOs are real. And I didn't know about this particular article. I didn't know anything about these things because nobody talked about it. It wasn't really a big deal. But during COVID, I found a podcast named That UFO Podcast, and I started listening to it, and it's this Scottish fella and his British friend who they're talking about UFOs all the time. And one of the first UFO videos that I saw was a orb that was flying over a metallic orb that was flying over Mosul, Iraq, and it really caught my attention. And I've been obsessed almost with UFOs ever since. I've always been a big fan of UFOs and aliens and shit, but in our correspondence, we had talked a little bit about UFOs, and why do you think the UFO phenomenon? So when we're talking about they, I don't know who they are, and but why do you think they're here?
I'm trying to figure that out, Ricky. It has to do with the novel I'm working on now. Um, and it's really it's high weirdness what I'm trying to um, generate. But I think that, and I grew up with Star Trek. I was a Trekkie back in the 70s. Okay. So Gene Roddenberry, love that guy's brain. Uh, I think that it has to do with resources. I think that I'm a big fan of Graham Chapman,
Yeah.
and he had a saying that he's picked up on, which is as above, so below. And so there's a reflection point where what we see on the earth is also what's going on in the greater universe. I
Yeah.
think that there's life everywhere
Yeah.
in the universe. They found microbes in space that are like on the outside of the Skylab, or I mean, the International Space Station.
The
So where
sand
did you?
fleas. They found sand fleas up there.
Yeah. So there's
Yeah.
life everywhere, and so this is going to sound silly. Of course, I'm a silly person, but I think that okay. Here's a Kennyism. I believe, without any proof whatsoever, that most of the space aliens, and that's how I refer to them, are nice. They're good. They're good people.
Yeah.
But there's like a third of them that are complete assholes. Okay, and don't and look at us like you would look at, you know, cattle
Yeah.
or what have you. And we have abundant resources. So as human beings have explored on our planet, what did we do when we colonize? We strip out natural resources, we enslave the people, or whatever, you know. So I'm not saying, Ricky, that all space aliens are assholes, but the ones that are, you're not going to win. I
Yeah.
think that they're tens of thousands of years ahead of us in technology, but I think they probably respect us because, as far as engineering is concerned, I mean, what, a century and a half ago, people were still living in like sod houses.
Right.
And
Right.
all of a sudden, we're like, there must be like, holy crap, look at these people, you know, or maybe they're just sitting out with their, lawn chairs going, okay, any minute now, they're going to blow themselves up. Okay. Just
Right.
watch. Who
Right.
knows, but
So I've got many different theories on what it like. So I haven't decided. I go back and forth on what I think it is. Right. So it could be space aliens. Right. It could be, from galaxies far away or whatever. It could be more like extra dimensional. They could be traveling here from a different dimension. They could be. Here's a weird one. It could be us from the future. You know. And just yesterday, I was thinking. I was like, the lost city of Atlantis would perfectly explain UFOs because the lost city of Atlantis, they had, like uh technology. It's in these history books and stories and fables about how much technology and flying vehicles were part of the city of Atlantis. And when we talk about the lost city of Atlantis, it sunk down into the sea. And where are a lot of these UFOs coming from? They're coming in and out of the sea. So that maybe they've been here for thousands and thousands of years and they're hiding. If it's a possibility. Um, there's also there's a religious aspect to it, you know, in
certainly.
old government documents, they talk about humans being containers for souls, for
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, it's so weird. In World War II, back in like the 30s and 40s, um, the Germans were really obsessed with the occult during that time and studying and doing all that stuff that there's this UFO story that talks about a German weapon called the Glock, and it basically translates into the bell, and it's like a bell-shaped UFO type thing where it's
Mm.
this speculation where you climb inside of it and it's a time machine or it's a flying UFO, and it's pretty wild to read that stuff. Like there's pictures of it and all kinds of crazy stuff. Um, so I go back and forth ultimately on what I think it is, but why they're here is one of those things. Uh, it's kind of it's wild to think about. I love thinking about this kind of stuff.
Um, I, I, part of my thinking is also on a spiritual aspect.
Yeah.
I believe that, well, as the Apostle Paul wrote, we have two bodies, one celestial and one terrestrial. And so you have a physical body and your soul resides within your physical body. I believe that we're actually spiritual beings
Yeah.
that right now you're incorporated in this clay pot, you know?
Yeah.
And so there's a creator being and we're the baby. We're the baby. Okay. And there's going to be a new heaven age, a new earth age, and it might be fugly. I don't know. There's so much interesting things that are have come upon us. You know, we everyone's got an iPhone, so they're taking pictures of all kinds of bizarre stuff. Um, I don't know why there would be a UFO over Mosul, which is a particularly nasty place, but why not? You know, I mean, people are able to record these things, which they never were able to do before.
Right.
Um,
Right. And this was a government platform that picked it up. So I'm assuming it was something like a Reaper that was doing surveillance. And
mhm.
because it was way high, the surveillance system was way high. Now I know that they have surveillance systems on balloons there, but they probably wouldn't have something like that in Mosul because it was an active war zone at the time.
Yeah. Um, I wrote about Mosul. This is a total aside, but it was pivotal towards the end of the Iraq War, and as far as ISIS rearing its ugly head, totally off topic. But I love the UFO um, um, theme, if you would.
Yeah.
Graham Chapman. I've read a few of his books, and he's a great thinker. I really like the Younger Dryas phenomenon, if you're
Yeah.
familiar with
The
that,
younger
where
dryas impact theory.
yeah, well, it the smart people are able to determine that in the span of 900 years, ocean levels rose
Yeah.
400 feet. And
Yes.
so when I was a child, they taught us that the most recent ice age had ended about 10,000 years ago. And there used to be saber-toothed tigers and mammoths and giant beaver and things like that. I'm like, saber-toothed tigers, man, that's cool, right? And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, this global warming thing happened, and it's okay. People are believing just nonsensical crapolio. Uh, we don't need less carbon dioxide in our atmosphere. We need more
Right.
because plants need that to produce. And so, but it's things can be so ass backward in this world. You just think I think to myself, am I the weird one? Am I the one that's
It's like
right?
people are walking around to sleep, man. I say that all the time. People are like, so have you ever heard the term like people are becoming NPCs, non-player characters? So that's what they call like computer generated players in like games is NPCs, non-player characters. And that's what seems like I run into people all day long, every day that I'm like, how have you made it to this age without getting hit by a bus? Like It's so ridiculous. Like I run into people all day long that don't know how to do their jobs or refuse to do their jobs because they don't know how to do their jobs, and then they want to be mad at you for it. And it's one of those things where it's like if you don't laugh, you'll cry because it's so wild to see. Back in the 90s, you didn't see any of that. You went to the grocery store, ask a question, and you would get an answer. Now you go to the grocery store today, you ask a question, and they just stare at you until you walk away. It's wild.
Yeah, I remember getting my booster shot, my J&J booster shot at the Walgreens, and I was trying to ask the nurse, what is the, you know, purpose of this? What is this going to do for me? And they had zero idea what or why I was getting this. The only thing that was conclusive was that if I didn't get this and show my vaccine card to Facebook or to Google, I couldn't work anymore.
Yeah.
And so I think that it really, I'm going to, we're going back to that right now. Sorry to get us
Oh,
back
you're
online.
fine. Yeah, hey, this is a free flowing
A lot
podcast. It
of
goes
pissed
wherever.
off people. I mean, a lot of pissed off people should have come out of this experience and not believing the stuff that the government is telling you. I mean, does
Yeah.
the government know that there are space aliens? I don't know, but I've seen videos of crop circles being created by orbs, and the geometric patterns and what's going on in there. I think some of the good space aliens are like, okay, figure this out. We're talking to you. What are we saying to you right now? You know,
Right.
is it like a Pepsi commercial? I mean, is that
Right.
know?
And then you see all these things from uh Native American culture when you go down to like so have you ever heard of the Nazca lines?
Sure.
Yeah, so those are like you can't even tell what those are unless you're way up high, you know. So you almost have to be in the air to see them. Um, and from down on the ground, it just looks like a bunch of mounds that somebody had made. But to me, it's wild to it's wild to think about like that nobody talks about this stuff, man. And they want
Oh yeah.
I hear a lot that your government can't keep a secret. And well, that's horse shit. They can too. They keep secrets all the time. And a perfect example right now, like look at the Epstein files, right? Um, that the Epstein files in particular doesn't bother me. It's what it represents. They have lied and let's just say that, that it is true that there is no Epstein files, that there's no implications or anything. Then why for the last at least 4 years has both sides said that there's Epstein files? Both sides have talked about releasing them and holding people accountable and now both sides are like, oh, there's nothing to see here. And I'm like, you really want me to believe that? Then you're going to have to show me some proof that there's nothing to see here.
Yeah. It's tricky. I don't know whether um Pam Bondi put up some uh false expectations.
Yeah.
The guy was the one of the biggest dirt balls of all times. And so if a politician is associated with him, that'd be no bueno.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I mean, there's a you have to wade through the disinformation. It's like, okay, so we've known that food dyes are horrible for us,
Yeah.
right? And do you remember a movie called Oh God with John Denver and
Yes. Yes, I do.
George Burns?
Yes.
This was 40 years ago when that thing came out, or
I'm
the
40
early
years
70s,
old,
50s.
but
Yeah. And there's a scene in there where George Burns is in the grocery store and he picks up a box of cereal and he just says and he's in there and he's talking to John Denver. He says, "Why do you put all this crap in your food? There's 50 ingredients in here. This isn't healthy. This isn't." Okay, my point is obviously you got yellow dye number 5 and you know, um, the previous administration, they banned a couple of these things when they were going out the door. So if you eat Skittles, you eat, you know, Lucky Charms.
Yeah.
Why are you putting petroleum products in our food?
Yes. Yes.
And
And I didn't know any of this shit until I was much older and already addicted to shit. And I it, it it is so ridiculous that the food companies and corporations have been allowed to do this to us. And to go back to what our point was earlier, like our government's not coming, nobody's coming to save us. These people don't give a shit enough about us to make sure that corporations aren't poisoning us. You know, like back in the 30s when they were the alcohol prohibition, you know, the government poisoned alcohol. They made alcohol undrinkable by poisoning it, and they killed a bunch of people trying to get them to not drink alcohol. Like this wasn't that long ago. It was less than 100 years ago.
yeah, well, you're the crazy one, Ricky. you're
Exactly. Exactly. I'm
you're the one. But look at the and how media has evolved, right? Now there's podcasts all over the place.
yeah.
Maybe they can't keep the genie in the bottle. Um, it's like I learned to it's like with my mother. I mean, I became so cynical. It's like my mother who's passed away. My mother's with Jesus now, but it's like, do I trust my mother? Yes, I will trust my mother, but I will verify. Like Reagan dealing with the commies.
Trust
Trust,
yet
but
verify.
I trust my
Exactly.
mother I trusted her for the most part. So
You're
yeah,
talking about George Burns just a minute ago. So I'm only 40 years old, but George Burns used to be one of my favorite actors when I was a kid because he was hilarious and he was old. So I loved his comedy, you know, his style, his acting style. He's old ass man walking around with a cigar in his mouth, and you know they're telling you, "Oh, this stuff will kill you." Well, that it didn't kill that guy. So I think he lived to be like, I think he was like 98 when he passed away, something like that.
yeah, he
I have
kept
to,
and he kept working and things like that.
yeah, yeah.
So
It's great.
are you a reader?
I am. So actually love to read, but usually I don't have a whole. So I tell people, yes, I love to read and I love to, I have a book collection over there. That's not all my books. I have a whole bookshelf in the other room. But these are all the books that I've collected from authors that have been on the show, and most of them are autographed. That's what I do. I try to collect as many as I can from the people I've
Oh,
spoke
cool.
with. I don't always read those books. I try to, but again, like I'm a stay-at-home dad, part-time stay-at-home dad, full-time house husband, full-time podcaster. So it's depends on time really, and my 6-year-old demands a lot of my time. So I do love to read, but I only usually get in 4 or 5 books a year, maybe.
What about audiobooks? Do you
I would love audiobooks, actually. That's probably, I've not actually listened to a whole lot of audiobooks, but I actually, the ones I have listened to, I love them.
I did audiobooks of both of my novels. Um, I
Did you read
got
it
pushed.
yourself?
I narrated
That's
it
awesome.
myself, and it was a blast. So they're up on Audible and things like that. But yeah, I had a buddy is like, oh yeah, you should just do audiobooks because I was doing book signings at my local post exchange at Fort Lewis, Washington, and in various events. And people would say, "Do you have an audiobook?" And I'm like, "Oh, I got it." So, but it was a lot of fun to do it. But I found a producer and whatnot. So, perhaps after we finish our conversation, let me know, and I can shoot something your way.
Absolutely.
Um, to get you a if you had an Audible account, um, we could do it like that as well.
I think I do. I mean, I probably actually have one, but I don't know if it's active or not. I'm on Amazon Prime. I have Amazon Prime,
Mhm.
which all that stuff is connected. I've been a Prime member for oh hell. I've been a Prime member since like 2010. So it's I've been a member for a long time, and all of those services just kind of back in the day they used to be one, and so now they've just separated it out. I've actually got accounts for all that stuff, but I don't know if it's active or not. But yeah, I'd love to have an audiobook. I'd actually like to. There's actually several books that I've been waiting to read for a long time that I'd actually like to get on audiobook. It's wild how that sometimes being a parent, being a dad, we all the time, you know, sometimes I have like an hour or two every night that I can kind of decompress, but I don't immediately think about reading during those times. I like quiet times is what I think about during those times. So, but yeah, I'd absolutely when we finish up here, I'd love to get some. Where can people find you, man? I know you got a website. What's the name of your website?
It's just kennydupar.com.
Okay. Okay.
Uh,
And
and that
there on kennydupar.com, you can get, you can read up about Kenny, and you could buy his books as well there. And of course, are you on Amazon too, right?
that was my first step was to get the books onto Amazon.
Yeah.
And then after I would we'd finish production of the audio books, it goes on Audible. And this has been a real journey, Ricky, because I've had coaches say, well, you need to have a social media presence. So
Yeah.
I started making YouTube shorts. And if you if you would like to see some stupid stuff, okay, uh, check out my YouTube channel because I am loaded with stupid. I did a series recently of the man in the big yellow hat. Instead of well, it was a ripoff, Curious Carl,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So I just did some silly stuff that way just to like be because I'm an indie author
Yeah.
and this is America. Unless people can make a dime off of you, nobody really cares. So
That
I
is
get it.
so true. That is so true, brother. I can't count how many times I've reached out to people and they didn't want to be on my podcast because I don't have, a million subscribers. And I'm like, I just want a conversation. I'm not going to pay you. You're not going to pay me. I don't do this for the money. It's not very, I mean, I know people make money doing it, but I'm not making very much money at all. And what I'm really doing this for is conversations. I don't really care. So I get a lot of people that reach out to me that want to hawk their products, and for me, that's just I'll help you, promote your product, but what you gotta do for me is give me a little conversation in exchange, and like you don't even have to record it. We don't have to, like, if you wanted to just have a conversation with me and you reached out to me and we could do this without recording. I'm that kind of guy. I love people. I love talking to people, and I actually like talking to people who have a different mindset than me. Like we don't have to agree on everything, and it's the way that we disagree that matters. We can disagree and still be friendly, and we can like kind of like identity politics right now. On both sides, you can't have a conversation about common sense issues without being attacked. And that's why I want to get people to a different place where we're all human beings. We're all in this together. We all have to figure this out. We can disagree and not be hateful.
I agree with that goal. Absolutely. As a podcast guest, right? It's my responsibility to add and give you value add as far as the things that you want to explore. It's like for me, I wrote I wrote my two novels because I wanted to figure stuff out in my own head. Right. I would like
Yeah.
to say that I figured out the war in Iraq, and that was my therapy. Right. And I did a lot of stupid things there too. But yes, having that conversation, and I see a little space alien guy in the back there, the big eyes and stuff. It's interesting, it's fun, but it's kind of spooky at the same time. And is it real? And we're passing information along, you know. So it's a new good wrinkle
Yeah.
in media.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm that I consume podcast most all day, every day. Joe Rogan's one of my favorites. Julian Dory is my favorite podcaster of all time. That guy is amazing. Um,
Really?
if you've never heard of him, it's Julian Dory podcasts, and he's actually been on my podcast. I'm probably going to reach out to him soon about doing it again, but he's my favorite podcaster. Like number one because he is so good at it, but number two because he he's just as curious as I am, and when he asks questions to his guests, it comes from a place that he's thought about it, but yet he's doing it on the fly. He's so quick, and his memory is so awesome. Uh, I just I love the guy's content. He has a lot of good friends. Andrew Bustamante, which is he's a former CIA spy, and he comes on that show all the time. And then there's Jim Diorio. He's a former FBI agent out of the New York office, and there's this. They really seem like a cast of characters at first, um, but then as his podcast progressed, he's getting bigger and he's getting more well-known guests, and it's been a fantastic journey watching him. So he's been my favorite podcaster. And then there's Danny Jones, Lex Friedman. I like really all those thoughtful sciency shows too. Um, but one of my favorites that you might be into, Sean Ryan. He's down there. He's just outside of Nashville, as a matter of fact. So he's pretty close to you. But the Sean Ryan show, he does a lot of military, uh, political kind of stuff, and he talks to a lot of world leaders. He talked to the vice president of Taiwan recently. He just did an interview with Gavin Newsom. I haven't listened to that yet, but it's like 3 hours long. Might be kind of interesting. I don't like Gavin Newsom at all. So I've been waiting to kind of listen to that podcast where I have 3 hours to listen to the whole thing because I dislike Gavin Newsom. I think it's important to listen to him.
He's a pretty slick politician.
Yeah, he is. I think that's the biggest thing that I don't like about him is because he's like his hair is slicked back. That's how his personality is. He seems like a slime ball, and not in a good way. Um, he seems like he seems like one of those type of people that sell your soul to the devil to if he can make money on it. And that's just my take on it. Do I think he's in the Epstein files? Probably not. He's not that kind of guy. That's not
Bill
the kind
Clinton
of
sure was.
absolutely, absolutely he was, and that's part of the reason why we'll never see that stuff.
Well,
Trump's all over that. Like Trump's got pictures with the guy, so like it's not like we can't pick on one without picking on the other. I don't think. Bill
well, I think
Clinton was. just a big part of that. There was Bill, Microsoft guy, Bill Gates.
Gates.
Bill
Yeah.
Gates. He was like Chris Tucker was on the plane, as well. And Chris Tucker actually doesn't deny anything. He's like, hey, listen, this is what it was. We were going to this place. I didn't know whose plane it was, but I was there, and we were doing all kinds of stuff. That guy was there. I did see him. It was his plane. I just didn't know that until I got on it.
Yeah, I don't know how many times Bill Clinton was on the manifest. I think it could have been a lot, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna say for the record that the Clintons are a fabulous family, and I have nothing against them in it whatsoever. And I want to live a nice long life.
Yeah.
Mm.
I actually, I actually don't mind the Clintons. Um, Hillary Clinton was like, we all know she had her issues and she was dangerous and all this, that, and the other thing, but she was pretty good at her job at the time when she needed to be. I think that lady did a lot of evil things that nobody will ever know about for the benefit of our country. And I think Bill Clinton was just Bill Clinton was good for the time. I think he was. They got away with a lot of things, but I think they ultimately helped more than they hurt.
It was the 90s.
Yeah, the
The
'90s were good
economy
for
was
me, man.
great. Yeah, the
The '90s
economy
were
was
good
just
for me.
chugging along.
Yeah, yeah, and Bill Clinton was the last president that left the budget in a surplus. So um, that was pretty impressive at the time. And now I don't know if we'll ever pay down our national debt, but it seems like the media and the politicians that are currently in power like have talked about the US debt to death and are not doing anything about it. Nobody wants to do anything about it. Just kick the can down the road. And ultimately, like
Yeah.
we were talking about being a prepper, like I want to be ready for that too. Like if the economy collapses, I want to be ready for that. And for people out there that may or may not know, if you've signed a 30-year contract on your house, if the value of the dollar drops out at the bottom of the value drops out the dollar, you know, you can still pay off your house with the dollar because that's the contract you signed. So that's my little piece there.
The President Trump has talked about how, with his big, beautiful bill, that the U.S. economy can grow itself out
Yeah.
of debt. I've
Yes.
heard that argument for 40 years.
Yes.
Okay. And so, yes, the government has a huge spending problem, but every other country in the world has done the exact same thing. And there will be financial, collapses and things like that. But
Yeah.
and we never even talked about the military stuff. I thought that
Yeah.
might be.
Yeah. If you got a little bit of time, we can get into it, or we can schedule another one and talk about all kinds of military stuff. Like I'm I'm a big history buff. All the I like all history kind of really, but American
Mhm.
history is kind of one of those things that I really, really love. Um, War is one of those things that I like to learn about. Vietnam is one conflict that I don't know a whole lot about, but I do like learning about. World War II is infinitely fascinating to me. And right now in 2025, with all the stuff going on in the Middle East, the Iraq Afghanistan thing that we had going on for 20 years was I I don't know much about it because I've I don't know much more than what's been portrayed in the media, if that makes sense, because like we still don't have a whole lot of truth from there.
In my research, when I was looking at what has been proffered out there with books primarily, they're written by the special operators, the
Yeah.
infantry officers writing books about the Second Battle of Fallujah and things like that. Whereas I am a goofball engineer. Okay, so I look at the world very differently than some of the hua hua, type of guys.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Yeah.
was in the army for a long time, 30 years in the reserves and 8 years active federal, which meant, and what I tell people is that I was in Iraq. The wars in Iraq was like a doubleheader in baseball.
Yeah.
You had the first game was the Gulf War of 1991, and then the second game was 2003 through 2011. So I was there in the first inning, and I was there in the last inning, and in
Yeah.
between I trained troops. Of that second game of the doubleheader, and so I it's a lived experience for me, and I ended up with a comprehensive understanding of the war.
Yeah.
And I'm writing this book, and my mother asked me, she was my first editor. She's like, "Who's your audience?" I'm like, "Who's my audience?" Everybody, the whole world is my audience. It's like, no, can you narrow it down? And I really didn't. I wrote the book so that someone who was not in the military could read it and understand it. But it gets complicated in a hurry because it was a counterinsurgency.
Yeah.
And then you have the Sunni Shia schism, and you have to look through. I say that you have to look through the lens of the Sunni Shia schism. Otherwise, nothing's going to make sense.
Right.
And the culture is very different for
Yes, it is.
for and so um it's a mixed bag in Iraq. And again, that's one of these things as far as history is concerned. I'm kind of interested in, adding my voice to the conversation because we're not all Chris Kyle, American Sniper. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. It was a great,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, and Chris
I
Kyle
was
was,
actually very familiar with the story before the movie came out.
but here's the thing, Ricky, is that even though someone who was that highly trained, yes, it's dramatic and it makes good for mass media because there's a lot of action in it.
Right.
But there was a portion of the story that cannot be overlooked, which is when he was home, he wanted to be overseas.
Yes.
When he was overseas, he wanted to be home. That's very common because even though he was a super trooper and did incredible things overseas, he still missed his family.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what your job is. When you're on the other side of the planet, we all have the same problems, and if your kid is misbehaving, right? I don't care if you're a general or if you are a petroleum specialist who's been in the army for an afternoon. You can't do your job when you're worried about what's going on at home. And so that's a universal theme, you know,
Yeah.
and it's prevalent. I mean, it's with everybody. So that was kind of my therapy, was writing the novel and also confessing my sins because I done did bad, Ricky. I done did bad.
Uh,
uh,
so did you write about some of that stuff in your first book or?
oh yeah, yeah. Chapter 6 is called "Why I Stole a Bulldozer,"
Oh, no shit.
but it
That's
was a great.
hilarious.
It was a big boat. It was a D9 high track, so it's one of the biggest bulldozers that you would see. It's like the biggest bulldozer you would see on a construction site.
Right. It's actually the size of it. It's one of the biggest that can fit on a truck. So
Right.
like any, I think it's any larger than a D11. You can't move them on a truck. You have to disassemble them first. So D9 is massive.
Yeah. The one that I'll tell you what. I'll tell you the best joke of the war up front. Okay. So allegedly, my boss came to me and he said, "Hey, Kenny, there's a D9 high track up armored in a railroad yard in downtown Baghdad. What do you think about going to go get it? Right now, we're engineers. I mean, we can put this thing to use, right?
Right.
And so, like an idiot, I asked him, "Well, whose is it?" And he says, "Well, it says Caterpillar on the side of it, so it's America's. Go get it." Right? It's like, yeah, all right, yeah, that's no problem, allegedly. Um, and here's one of the things I learned is that when it's 120 degrees outside, nobody cares what you're doing. Nobody
Right.
cares what you're doing. So if you're going to steal something, you do it in the middle of the day. All right. And so, and so I describe it in the book. The why is because we hung about $30,000 worth of parts on it. We got it up to technical inspection standards, and we gave it to the Marine Corps because they already had one. Because these machines just go through walls. They just
Right.
go through walls. You can collapse a building with these things because you have like a normal masonry block building. You just
Yeah.
go around and you just knock out one corner, then you knock over another corner, and then by the time you've knocked out all the corners of the building, then you just drive over the building.
Yeah. Yeah. You ever seen that movie? You ever seen that movie with James Garner? It's called Tank.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that the one
he's an
where?
army sergeant, and he ends up he has a Sherman tank as part of his own personal collection, and he stores it on base. And his kid gets in legal trouble in this small town just outside of the base, and the sheriff is crooked, and so the sergeant ends up the sergeant major, I think is what he was. He ends up going and gets his Sherman tank, and he goes and runs over the jail and gets his kid out of this camp, and then they take off across the country or across the countryside to get to the next state line so that they could get a fair trial. And it's a great movie. I think it's like a 80s movie, but it's got James Garner in it, and it's called Tank. It's fascinating movie.
Yeah, that actually got reflected in reality a few decades later, where
Yeah.
a guy built the up armored a tractor.
Yeah, is
Went on a
Killdozer,
rampage.
Marvin Heemeyer, I believe is what his name is.
Really?
And yeah, and that dozer was a similar size to the D9, I believe.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. So I did some scoundrelly things my first go around, and I had to go back to atone for what I done did wrong. But there's plenty of scoundrels in the army and in the military, plenty. Let alone with an Arab culture. You know, you don't have to teach these people how to buy and trade. They got that down.
Right. Yeah, I
So
think that's another one of those things that we'll have to talk about is like if the financial system collapses, how everybody's just going to go back to the barter system.
good luck with that.
Well, I mean, it already happens actually. So, uh, think about China, right? Like, how does business happen in China? Like they have these the social credit system, and they have
Yeah, it's scary.
everything's tied to their phones, right? Well, like nobody outside of major cities uses that stuff. It's all barter. They buy this and they buy that, and then they trade with it.
I wouldn't want to be a Chinese national living under that regime.
I wouldn't want to. I man, I hate communism so much. I'm so
Okay, fist
anti-communist.
fist bump, brother. Yeah, yeah, if I want to entertain my woman, I'll start talking about how much I hate the goddamn communists. you know.
So my wife is more conservative than I am. I'm actually pretty fairly moderate. A lot of people say that I'm on the right because of who I voted for, but my views do not. I'm I'm very weird about how I think about things. I'm Donald Donald Trump is his politics is like a realpolitik is what they call that.
Mhm.
Um, he sees the world for like, well, I mean, this is what realpolitik means. You see the world for what it is, not for what we want it to be. And that's kind of how I am. I understand that the United States has interests that aren't my own. I do understand that. Like the Russia Ukraine conflict, there was a point for the United States government to draw that out a little bit. The problem is they did it too slow and drew it out too much, and now we're at a point where we like it's at a stalemate and nobody wants to quit. So I do understand the nuances behind a lot of the things that we do. I just wish that we were more honest about doing them. I am so sick and tired of the kids of this, the children of this country being raised to hate it. Why do we have to feel guilty for the things that we do when uh, really we're just trying to protect our way of life? That's all we're doing.
Yeah, that's there's a lot of Marxist thoughts that has been inculcated within our education system.
Yeah.
Um, but as an aside, since we talked about you mentioned the um, ongoing war between Russia and the Ukraine. As a military officer, Colonel Kenny, are there, besides Colonel Sanders, are there any other famous colonels? By the way,
No, no, I don't.
okay,
I'm
so
not sure.
I'm okay. It's like share. Or, anyway, the fact that Russia could not conquer Ukraine in short order mystified military professionals in the West. It's like, are you guys still fighting like it's the 19th century?
Yeah.
I mean, there was one highway that went from Belarusia in the north going straight down. One highway. It's like, where was your aviation assets? What was your logistical plan? Why weren't you using everything that you had right off the bat? It's like, where
I
were your
actually have a theory about that. So during, so the
why
first,
do they suck?
the first casualty of war is usually the truth, right? So I don't know if there's any truth to this, but CIA's been on the ground since a long time ago, since like 2014. So I believe I believe that there's been assets over the top of Ukraine that Russia didn't know about. You know that 40-mile long convoy that ran out of gas?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that was intentional. Like we don't know what happened to their supply line. And I don't think Russia does either, but I don't think that they would have started that. I don't think they would have traveled that far without a supply line. I really don't.
It's inexplicable.
Did you see? So in the first couple days, they turned Kyiv inside out, and like I don't, I don't think that was 100% Ukraine's government. I think that was the United States intel services.
Maybe, but the Russians have been rather inept as far as warfare was concerned. The
Yeah,
red
they
the
always
Red
are.
Army the Red Army defeated the Germans, but it took 20 million casualties to do it.
Yes, yes.
Um, there's all different kinds of crazy aspects. Recently,
Not
the
only did
Secretary of
they have to use
Defense,
20 million people to do it, but the United States and other allies, we financed it.
yeah, um, I if you want to hear a weird one, recently Secretary Hegseth has telling combatant commanders, if you would, in all services, to start employing drones like it's going out of style. Figure out how to get these things, build them cheap, and figure out how they can be used in mass formations.
Yeah.
Okay, sci-fi has reality has caught up to sci-fi, so we're going to have like 1,000 drones, and this is something even I can understand. You get a couple thousand drones, each one of them with like a stick of dynamite duct tape to the bottom of it, and they just, I mean, here we go.
Yes, and Ukraine's the world's largest producer of them now. Off the shelf, they use off the shelf parts so that, and with fiber optics, man, they're using fiber optics for the controls. And there's pictures coming out of Ukraine where like top down pictures that look like spider webs covering the whole area. What that is fiber optic lines from these drones. It's
Fiber
crazy.
optic lines. I don't understand what
So
they're.
they're hooking these like fiber optic lines. It looks like fishing line
Yeah.
to these drones, and they're flying them around. And they're that way they're always connected.
Oh, yeah.
It's the
Okay.
wildest thing you'd ever seen. Like you'll have to look it up when we get off here. It's wild. They have pictures coming out that are of fields, just massive fields where all you see is green and the trees. And then over the top of that, it looks like massive amounts of spider webs everywhere. Those are fiber optic lines.
And that can be deployed like the old telephone wires in between infantry positions, like commo
Yes.
wire, and they
Yes.
can and that can be produced at
I
low
have.
cost.
So yeah, I assume so. I think the fiber. So the problem though is the fiber optic is it's fragile. It's glass, and they're using it like just one strand to control and feed information in and out of this drone. So there's no electrical interference, and there's no
Oh,
jamming. So it has to be connected to this fiber optic line. And if they cut that fiber optic line, it loses power, it loses everything. So it's kind of crazy how they got it going on, but so I
what
wouldn't
happens to the
personally do it.
lines?
I assume they just leave them.
So they're just like in the trees and just like all over the place. And
Yeah, yeah. Where that wouldn't necessarily affect operations if they're not using people in and out of there. So, I mean, if you look at the battle lines right now, they're pretty much been frozen in the same spot for the last 3 years. So,
yeah, I also wouldn't want to be a Russian soldier conscript. Uh,
that's for sure.
do
That's
we
for
even
sure.
know how many people, how many soldiers have been killed? I mean, it's
Um,
up there, man. I mean, the Russians have
so
probably have lost over 100,000, right?
the casualty numbers are over 1 million for Russia since 2022. So
That would be
since invasion, their casualty numbers are over 1 million. Your guess is as good as mine as how many of those are deaths, but
well,
I'd say at least a quarter of them.
at least a quarter of them, right? I
Yeah,
I would say it'd be like a one third, two thirds,
yeah.
and it's like, what? Why? Why are you doing this? And for the Europeans, um, what kind of a threat are the Russians really? Because you can't even get out of your own driveway.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's
So the Cold War was over prior to 2000 ish, but when Vladimir Putin took over, I think it's a goal of his to get the Soviet Union back together. And whether that be by force or by volunteer, I think that there was massive amounts of strategic miscalculation when they went into Ukraine. Um, and I don't really fully understand why they did it or why they keep going. I really don't. But if we look at it from a Western centric lens, it would be so much better if we were friends.
Yeah, it's like when the Cold War culminated, it was like all the guns were pointed towards the Soviet Union that no longer existed.
Yeah,
And we kept the guns pointed in the same direction, even though it was like, well, are they really a threat?
right,
You know?
right. So,
And
is a new Soviet Union going to be a response to NATO? NATO? I mean, that's a legit question because like the Soviet Union doesn't exist, so NATO's primary reason for existing doesn't exist anymore. And
yeah,
I think that by treating Russia like the same entity as the Soviet Union after the Soviet Union fell, yeah, that ideology still exists out there, but like Russia's not even communist anymore. So I don't think Putin's a communist. It's a pretty straightforward, like it's a Christian country nowadays, I think. And so it's Orthodox is what they call it. But they're no longer communist, and they're switching everything. Like it's more Western now than it ever was back in the day, and that they have a Western market. They like Western things, cell phones, electronics, clothes, music, movies. Now, their culture in Russia is about 20 years or so behind ours. So, what was popular in the early 2000s is what's popular in Russia. But that's just because of like how much time it takes to get our things there. But I think it'd be so much better if we were friends with Russia and we could. I think that I think a huge conflict with China is inevitable, and I'd much rather have Russia's help than be enemies. You know what I mean?
I do. I don't see, yeah, that hardcore communism has dissipated there, but we have um, our our own malign influences in the Western democracies and whatnot. The whole woke nonsense actually started in the UK, you know,
Yeah.
and it came here,
I have a
and
theory about that. It
it's
actually probably started
it's
in the Middle East, brother.
well, you asked the question, Ricky, about the threat to NATO, or you implied it as far as the European Union is concerned. Well, with their open migrant policies, a quarter of the French population now are Muslim,
Yes.
and they don't like to assimilate.
No,
It's
you're actually that's one of the things that man, thank you for bringing that up because you're absolutely right. They do not want to assimilate. They are coming there to spread their ideology. That's exactly what they're doing.
right, and so I don't think the Europeans have to worry about that. I think it's is it the enemy from within
Yes. Yes.
type of thing, and we came very close in this election cycle to hiring a politician, um, Vice President Harris. The thing that scared me about that woman is that I never heard her say anything with a number in it. I think she was one of these kids that was told when she was in the fourth grade that she was horrible with math, and she never learned it. She never did it at all, and she was an economic illiterate.
That's me.
And it's like, well, yeah, but you're not gonna, you know, be like this guy in New York City. He wants to be mayor, and he's gonna have government run grocery stores. It's
My
like,
my wife just asked me last night how far I think he will go. Um Man, I did not expect him to have as many supporters on the Democratic side that he does. But I was telling my wife, I was like, the blob does not like people like him. What I mean by the blob is the deep state. the people that were running the government for the last 4 years before 2025. So I don't think that they like people like that. But if they see a way to seize control over things, they'll absolutely let it go. They'll absolutely let him go farther than the mayoral race of New York.
Well, we started off by talking about COVID,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
after it went on and on and on and on, the radio personalities, the conservative guys um, out in Seattle land, were saying this isn't about COVID; it's about power and a
yes,
and a power grab, and how little tyrants just love to be able to push their weight around and tell people what to do and how to run their lives under the auspices of being virtuous. We
exactly
are
right.
we are helping you. We are here to save you. And we'll save the planet at the same time. It's like, okay, I believe you.
That's exactly right, man. And during the time we were talking about masks earlier, during the time I was like, hey, is this really the hill you want to die on? The masks, like, can't you just put on the mask and shut up? And the people are like, you don't understand. Like, it's not about the mask. It's not. I don't care about the mask. I just don't like being told what to do, and they cannot articulate to me a reasonable explanation of why I have to wear the mask. And I was like, okay, well, if you're going to look at it from that lens, that makes sense. And then I started paying more attention. And these, like the people that were anti masks, it wasn't that they were anti mask, they were anti government bullying because and that's exactly how they framed it is if you let them have control, they will never give it back to you.
And who's that guy wearing women's underwear on his face? The blob was like, who is this idiot wearing? And I'm like, here I
You need
am.
to get you some Colonel Kenny shirts.
Uh, if I can get more than 50 subscribers to my YouTube channel, maybe I'll do that.
Yeah, I feel the same way, brother. Like my kids talk to me all the time. You need to get some. You need to get some merch. You need to get some merch, and I'm like, who's gonna buy it? Like, if okay, let's just say I buy 500 shirts. Um, I have to have that many people that want to buy my product, and yeah, I have a couple hundred listeners, that never miss any shows, but at the same time, like, how much how much money would be worth it for, like, are they how many of those people would buy a t-shirt? And I'm like, once I get a couple thousand, maybe, but I don't think right now is a good time. I want the podcast to pay for it. I'm a family man. We've got less than $100,000 a year income here, and we are trying to live more simply than and I don't. I've already spent a shit ton of money on this already. So, and it's for me, it started as like a hobby. Now it's starting to make money, and I'm like, I want to put money into it. I want to pour money into it, but I want it to sustain itself. So,
My producer was on me for a long time. It's like, why don't you start your own podcast? I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. That's not what I am about. I'm
yeah,
already trying to figure things out through my art, my writing, right, and doing my self therapy in that regard. But you get as big as Rogan, you can sell merch, right?
yeah. I would love to be. You know what? I'd just love to be in the same room as that guy so I could talk to him. For like that's what it's about for me is the people and sharing the conversations and stuff like that. And I just love every bit of it. And when it comes to like merch and like eventually um, I'd actually like to have some equipment to travel with so I could do some road shows and whatever. But like I said, it's some of that stuff is really, really expensive. But all the yeah. It's I would love to I would love to have you back on, and we can talk more about Iraq and Afghanistan. I would love to talk about those things because, like you had mentioned that you were an engineer, correct?
Yes.
So I want to talk to the audience and tell the audience what an engineer does, what your job was, and some of your experiences. A lot of people like to hear about, like war stories and stuff like that. I don't, I, that's not as important to me as your personal experiences while you were over there with your guys and the camaraderie, the fun things that you did, the scary things that happened. I don't want to necessarily talk about like blood and gore and everything like that. Like if you've seen combat, it is what it is. We can talk about the happy things and the not so happy things, but kind of leave all the death and despair out of it.
As an engineer, we're not designed to throw lead down range.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
wasn't my experience. Now, sometimes the engineers can be actually in front in combat engineering. We I went twice with the first time we did well, I went with a heavy construction battalion. And so we had a lot of dozers and scrapers and cranes and earth moving equipment and road graders. But we also had carpenters, electricians, plumbers, so
Yeah.
that we could do what we called vertical construction, which was from the ground up, and then horizontal construction, meaning along the ground. So we built um, a lot of FOBs, forward
Which
operating bases,
forward operating base.
and entry control points, and we built facilities for follow-on forces. In my second deployment, I did. I was there doing contract administration, so we had Iraqi contractors, Turkish contractors, Americans, and they were in support of the Iraqi government. So we built the crown jewel of my office in Tikrit, which was Saddam Hussein's hometown. Pretty nasty. Was a 9-story tall air traffic control tower. So it helped them and their air force. That was the home of the Iraqi Air Force. But we built schools, we built police stations, governmental buildings, and this goes into the counterinsurgency effort, which gets complicated in a hurry. People have this mindset that we lost the war in Iraq, and it's a mixed bag.
Hey,
However,
listen, man. America, United States, we don't win. We don't lose wars. That doesn't happen. So we didn't lose Vietnam either. We gave up. We did not complete our military objectives, and we were like, okay, we're done.
um, the patriots are the ones who win the war. Otherwise, you were an insurgent and you lost. So the Americans, George Washington, they were those nasty, dirty insurgents. And the British government, after many years, it was like, this is too expensive. We can't handle this anymore. Let's just let these little bastards go. And we'll come back in 20 years and kick their ass again. And that's exactly what the British did. Okay. So if you lose the war, yeah, you were the and so in that effort of supporting the host nation, the host nation has to be able to be seen by the population as being able to provide essential services. So schools, right? Energy consumption, transportation, media, all different kinds of things. And the American government was very good at sending provisional reconstruction teams out there, giving the farmers their farm implements, um, Marine Corps veterans going out there and inoculating livestock, getting their, Navy JAGs going over there and helping them with their legal institutions. How do you collect taxes and all this type of thing? But again, unless you look through the lens of the Sunni Shia schism, nothing's going to make sense
Yeah.
because they've been fighting for 1400 years.
Yeah.
And so most of the terrorism that goes on in the world are these two sects of Islam trying to, obliterate each other. And the Shia are mostly centered in Iran, but the majority of Arabs in Iraq are Shia.
Yeah.
90% of Islam is Sunni, so Mecca, Medina, Saudi Arabia. But Arabs are not Persians. Kurds are not Arabs or Turks or Armenians, and they've been there for thousands of years. The
Yeah.
Kurds, the Kurds have been conquered by everybody. You going back to the Mongols, to the Babylonians, to the
And
Greeks, to the
even
Romans.
still, even still, like now, it's they have a hell of a time, don't they?
I love the Kurds. The Kurds are great people.
Yes.
If I ever have to flee the United States, I know where we're going, Ricky. we're we're gonna go to Erbil.
Yeah.
It's in
Yeah.
it's in northern Iraq, and you think that you're in Budapest.
Really?
Oh, the Kurds are very West European oriented. They
Yeah.
eat with
Yeah.
they eat with a knife and a fork, even.
That's wild.
Tower cranes all over the place. They're really good people. They treat the Kurds um, marksmanship training is mandatory for girls and boys.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. I think that's actually, man, there's some ways of life that we probably should have stuck with back in the day. And I listen, 100% volunteer force, that's an excellent thing. We need to keep that going. But maybe we make JROTC mandatory. Maybe we do that because like these kids they're coming out of high school, they don't know how to do anything, they don't know how to talk to people, they don't, and that's our jobs as parents to make sure that they do, the things that they need to do. But for some reason, it's not happening. And back in the 70s, they had, physical education, right? In
yeah,
schools. And we had to do these. Well, I wasn't alive in the 70s, but there was these tests, the president's test that you had to take. And you had to get down and see how many push-ups and pull-ups you could do and stuff like that. That stuff doesn't happen anymore. It's not a thing anymore. We need to bring that stuff back because physical education is very important. And back in the 60s, 70s, hell, even the 80s, when you look at pictures from back then, everybody was small. Like we were tall people, but we were skinny. We were not big old round fat fuckers. And it's one of those things where I think that the culture has taken a step backwards because like we've gotten away from the things that made us a big, powerful place in the first place. And being lean and being mean was one of the things that got us to where we are now.
yeah. There's been a lot of demoralization,
Yeah.
systemic demoralization, especially for boys. You know,
Yes. Yes.
we're
They're
toxic.
Yeah, toxic masculinity. I hate that thing. Like, cause like, hey, listen, you want to call out toxic masculinity until you need one of us toxic motherfuckers, you know, like until you need somebody with an attitude to come fix your stuff, like everybody that dislikes our current president oh, they don't like him personally, or they don't like his politics, whatever the case may be. They're sure not going to they're not going to say anything like that if it comes time to where we need that attitude from him and we need leadership and stuff like that. They're not going to be saying toxic masculinity. They're going to be saying, bomber and that's exactly what they're going to say. So,
Is there a toxic femininity?
yes, in my opinion, absolutely there is. And I was married to one once.
Well, I'm glad you got out, man. Uh, when I was growing up in the 70s, it was male chauvinist pig.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Now
it
it's
was,
misogynists.
and so yeah, there's misogyny, which is a dislike of females
Yes.
for no apparent reason. Let's just put it that way. What's the flip side to that? Is there an adjective for that? Is there, I mean, female chauvinism, is there a term for that? Because, oh, by the way, there's a nanny state. We've heard of that.
Yeah.
Um, I've seen women who infantize people where they talk to you like you're three, you know?
That
So there's that
condescending
too.
tone. Yes.
And this whole idea of, okay, so we are going to get rid of the down with the patrimony and replace it with what? You know, let the boys go out there at recess, knock heads a couple of times a day, right? I mean, that's nature. No, 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 we can't have that, you know.
Do you remember back in the 90s when people like women on TV would be like, "Oh, that guy, he's just a big dumb animal." I don't mind being portrayed that way. I don't mind being portrayed as the masculine male. Like, man, I tell people all the time, like, I'm a stay-at-home dad. Like, that's pretty feminine. I don't go out and
Is
work. I
it?
don't well, a lot of people would think so, but I have boys, so I've got three boys, and they're not feminine by any means. And let me tell you what my house smells like. It smells like a fart mixed with pee, wrapped in just some kind of body odor that doesn't even. I don't even know what it smells
It
like. You ever seen the movie
it
Rocky?
smells.
He says, "Come on into my house. It stinks." It's kind of like that.
So your house smells like the United States Navy. It smells like assholes and corn chips.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah, like a lot of people think that like being a stay-at-home dad is not the manly thing to do. But my family kind of depends on me as the leader of the family to make all of the decisions. And it's weird to me because like a lot of women want control of everything. And my wife isn't like that. She doesn't want control of anything. She wants me to take care of everything, and she wants to go, you know, she wants to be the fun one is essentially what she wants to be. She wants to be the fun one. And it works for us. It works great for us because I'm able to take my control issues, because I'm the opposite. I like to have control of everything. And we make it work for us. And my boys they're not being taught bad ideas, but they're not being steered away from, like, it's difficult to explain because for
Did
me, I
you
just
know?
I just live this way.
Did you know that boys are just as smart as girls? Did you know that?
Yes. Yes.
50 years ago, they would say girls are just as smart as boys. And I can see the fact that, if you tell a girl you're not going to be good in engineering because that has math and sciencey stuff, you can't. So there was a prejudice towards females academically, but now I think that the the pendulum has shifted to the other side,
Yeah.
where it's like, okay, so you've seen hypocrisy, and now you've become it.
Yeah.
Is that so? Maybe we got to push the pendulum back towards a an equilibrium where you're saying, okay, kid, if you want to be that football hero, okay, that's fine, but you can learn physics too,
Yeah.
or what have you. But you know, it's that I'm struggling with that right now, and how to get my hands around it without being onerous.
Yeah.
Um, but women got some work to do, man.
That's right. That's right. And you talk about the pendulum swinging. We want to, we, I think the pendulum started swinging the other direction 2023, 2024. And we got to keep it from swinging too far right and too far left because we've got a lot of extremes now. In 2025, we're dealing with two different sets of extremes on the right and the left. And it's the same right and left as it always has been, even before the United States was a country. They didn't call them they don't call them Democrats and Republicans in other countries. It's right and left ideologies. And then there's the center, which is where most people genuinely are, is right in the center. And when you have the extremes pulling the pendulum their way, sometimes us people in the middle get kind of screwed.
I don't even like the concepts of right and left. In terms of political science, I don't think that's it's all that useful.
Yeah,
But
I was actually listening to a podcast yesterday who perfectly explained it. There was an old joke. I can't remember who the comedian was, but there was a puppet on. Which puppet do you like, the right or left puppet? And somebody would say, the right, and somebody would say the left puppet, and then they kind of zoom out, and it's the same person playing with both puppets.
okay, I don't get it.
Okay, so it's like so the same person is has both hands. You know what I mean? So
Oh, okay.
the
I see what
right
you're
and the
saying.
left is part of the same person.
Yeah. Well, you know, you got marriage rates are low, fertility rates are low. The
Yeah.
what Western populations are not replenishing themselves. Um,
We're actually
and
doing better than the
the,
other ones though. So,
it's like what it's like kids. What we want you to do is we want you to go out, get drunk, smoke cigarettes, try to get laid, and do something dangerous
be kids.
because that's what we did and we survived because
Yeah.
we see that this lack of irresponsible behavior in you is hurting your development. You know,
Yes. Yes.
go do something really stupid. It's okay. You'll
Yeah.
get in trouble if you get caught. Not getting caught, that's a different subject matter. But um, I kind of feel sorry for the current generation. I would not want to be kids coming out of high school right now
Yeah. Yeah.
with their social isolation. And you know, I've had a young woman once ask me, where are you supposed to find young men, you know, that are going to have the courage to actually have a conversation with you, look you in the eye? It was always
Yeah.
hard, but now forget about it. I don't know.
Yeah, we were talking about like you were talking about dating during COVID. Like, what would dating during COVID look like in your book? And that's one of the things that I try to the generations, the younger generations, like my generation and younger, are looking for love on dating apps and stuff like that. I see on social media all the time women ask, like, how do we meet people? How do, like, where do you, like, they are looking for better quality dates and stuff like that. I'm like, well, just shut off your phone, go outside. Well, I can't just, how do I meet people that way? Okay, so do you work? Do you have a job? Yeah, yeah, I work. I go to work every day. Okay, what do you stop and eat breakfast, or do you go to the gas station? Do you go grocery shopping? Do you, as a matter of fact, do you ever leave your house? Yeah, yeah, I leave house all the time and I do things and like, okay. So next time you physically see someone, you say hi to them and you start a conversation, and that's how it happens. That's dating in a nutshell.
I always thought that advice to a man or to a boy, you go where the girls are. If all the girls are going to the swimming hole, right, in the summertime, that's where you go.
Yeah.
If the girls are online and they're in the dating app, well, that's where you go.
Yeah.
Um, I met my girl through a dating app. She said that her favorite TV show was Ancient Aliens. I'm like, I'm in. That's it. You just got an A on the test, right? Ancient Aliens, you're my girl. And all like that. But people are really addicted to their phones. And she'll be, be watching a movie and she's looking at her phone. And I'll look at her and I'll ask her, are you looking at penises right now? She'll say, no, shoes. Shoes. I,
So
like it's
I actually met my wife online before it was cool. So my wife and I met on a dating site 20 years ago. So it's, well, almost 20 years, like 19 years ago. Um, we met on what is now a hookup site, plentyoffish.com. Back in the day, before it was a
yeah.
hookup site, it used to be a legitimate dating site. It was just free. That's where everybody went that was, that couldn't afford or didn't want to pay for like match.com at that time. And so we met on Plenty of Fish before it was a hookup site. And um, boy, but like we kind of fibbed to people about that for a while. Our families like didn't know that we had met online for a while, and it's not a big secret now because like it's a pretty normal thing to do now. But back in the day in the Midwest, it was considered dangerous to date online.
We can leverage technology. It's a good thing to live in the 21st century. We don't have a sod house,
Yeah.
air conditioning, all different kinds of things. But if they don't have it at Walmart, I don't need it.
Amen to that. Well, I would love to reach out and do this again. And we could like I'd love to talk all kinds of things about Iraq and Afghanistan. That was a big part of your life. I'd like to discuss that a little bit more.
Sure. And
Let me say goodbye to all these folks. Kenny, where can people, one more time, where can people find you again?
KennyDupar.com, and go to my YouTube channel if you want to see someone doing ridiculous things.
And we'll link those things in the description down below. Um, Kenny, hang out with me for just a moment. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.